while we're waiting for everybody, I can at least tell you guys a little bit about myself. My name is Jamie Ollier. I am the project manager for PLA's DidjaLearnorg. It's after lunch, right? My mother-in-law sent me this video 2 nights ago, and I was like, all right, I'm sharing it. So hopefully it works. And let me just say, because it's in German, but you only need to know what the woman says in the beginning to understand the video. And she says, Papa, how are you getting along with the iPad we gave you last Christmas?
You're not even going to show the video.
So yeah, so let's see, hopefully this works. Oh, hold on, I have to turn on sound, that would be helpful. Well, I guess I don't, but I could. You won't hear it too well, but you don't really need to.
Sag mal, Papa, habe ich dich noch gar nicht gefragt. Wie kommst du eigentlich mit dem neuen iPad zurecht, was wir dir zum Geburtstag geschenkt haben?
Gut.
Mit den ganzen Apps kommst du klar?
Was denn für Apps? Geh mal bitte die Schütze zur Seite.
Oh God. Well, so my family is insane about technology, so when we get together for Christmas or other holidays, it's everyone there. My mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my husband, myself, and my stepson, who is 4, all have our own iPads. And this last Christmas, we were sitting at the table, and all of us were on iPads, and I was like, this is a problem. So I think that was part of the motivation of her sending that. And it is we have a technology addiction. I will admit that. Okay. Oops. There we go. All right, that's working great. So yeah, I am the. Is this working? There it goes. So my name is Jamie Ollier. If you guys want me to stand up, I can. I can sit as well, whatever works out. So let me know. I am a library and tech consultant. PLA's DidjaLearnorg is my current big project. It's my main focus. And I'm really excited to be working with Barb on it and to be working with PLA on it.
And let me also interrupt Jamie for a second. PLA is so thrilled and delighted to have you. Phenomenal job.
Thanks. She's too kind. Can't embarrass me in the beginning. I'm also a member of the Colorado Broadband Knights of the Round Table. Yes, that is our official title. We are the state of Colorado's organization that works on broadband issues. We're a part of the Governor's Office of Information Technology and Economic Development. So kind of what David was talking about, we are that entity as well. And I am the chair for the digital literacy piece of the state broadband plan in Colorado. And I've also worked on the Colorado Blueprint, which is kind of our state's plan for how to grow economic development and all that sort of stuff. And I was part of the Building the Workforce of the Future through Digital Literacy Committee there. Before that, some of you may know me, have heard of me, maybe not, I don't know. You never know in library land, but I was the project manager for Colorado's Public Computer Centers. It was a BTOC grant. Before that, I worked in libraries and all this other stuff. So that's a little bit about me. I wanted to start off talking about kind of what's happening with digital literacy around the nation in different respects. If some of this is stuff you've heard about and you don't want more info on, again, let me know. If you really want to get more info on something else, please let me know. But I kind of parsed it into the main topics right now. It's just management, the training resources, all that stuff. You can read all that other stuff. So first off, all of you guys. This project is really important to inform how do we move forward and how do we build digital communities and foster digital inclusion. Also the NTIA Broadband Adoption Toolkit, are you guys familiar with that work? I should probably have you talk about that.
We'd love to hear more about it.
It should be coming out hopefully at the FCC Summit in 2 weeks in DC, hopefully. NTIA had hired me and John Corrigan, who is a digital vision researcher, to help them create a broadband adoption toolkit. And this is shortly before I started my position here. And so what I did is talk to a lot of their grantees and pull together, and the it's like everything we've been talking about here, right? It's the broadband adoption and it's the digital literacy. So it's often when I'm working or talking to any of you, I think I wish I had that toolkit because it's really full of it's really detailed. We were very careful to talk to the projects like, okay, if you're doing this, how are you doing it, and what are the challenges, et cetera, et cetera. So like we were talking earlier about needing to relay to you the low-cost options for home broadband. That's in the toolkit. Like I've already done it, but it's owned by the government. So I gotta wait till they release it. But I think it will be very valuable when it does come out.
The edge benchmarks you guys know a little bit about, I heard, yes? Okay. And then I'm putting in a plug for Project Encompass. In part because the work you guys have been doing informed that project, and in part because I worked on it, and so I have a love for it. But, and I can give you the link for that if you're interested. So Project Encompass is the Colorado State Library and the Colorado Broadband Knights of the Round Table have been working together to convene local community meetings about the importance of digital literacy. Libraries are present at all of them so far, but that doesn't mean libraries are leading them, because we want it to definitely be a community thing. We have agendas that you can use. We have a continuum about digital literacy that you can use. We have infographics that you can hand out and give to community members, sample invites, all that stuff. So if you're interested in that, to share out with your community, let me know, because we want people to use it. So the training piece. Of course, there are organizations like WebJunction and TechSoup and ALA-OITP and other organizations that help practitioners and librarians and other digital literacy people bring up their skills. There's also PATSI. Do you guys know about PATSI? Okay.
You might want to.
Could you
let
elaborate?
everybody does.
Yeah. Okay. So PATSI is a public access technology community. I think I forget what the C is for, but it's part of COSLA's, the Chief Officers State Library Association's group, to kind of talk about what are we doing, share out resources, share out best practices, all of that sort of stuff. If you're interested in becoming involved in PATSI, let me know, and I can send your information to Sarah Chesmore, who's kind of running that group.
So it's not limited to state library stuff?
No, it's not.
Oh, I didn't know.
No. It is invitation only because they want it to kind of be people that they want to be able to speak freely.
Right, I see. Okay,
For
so
full disclosure, Mary and I actually did a webinar for the PATSI community that we were approached to do something on our digital inclusion grant. So this is Mary to talk about their experience.
So let me make that just a little bit easier. I'll send out an email to everyone saying, do you want an invite or do you, so if you want an invite, let me know, and then I'll send them one big list.
That would be perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Is that good on PATSI? Yeah. Okay. And I didn't name it. I know it's our acronyms are hilarious in our industry, I think. And then there's DidjaLearnorg, my project, which you'll hear more about soon. And Connect to Compete, I'm putting them here under the practitioner piece with a little hesitation. They will have some resources for practitioners. Basically, last year, we were working with them on creating kind of a core curriculum that they can use for the digital literacy training. They recently realized, oh wait, we're only giving this to certain locations that are not going to be accessible for a lot of Americans. Not everyone has a Best Buy Geek Spot in their community, right? So they're going to release that curriculum and hope that others will use it. That being said, I'm not sure how great of a curriculum it is. I mean, I worked on it, granted, but it was kind of built for the idea that the Geek Squad would be doing this and Best Buy's behind it, so it doesn't have maybe the same goals as what a library would have. So take it with a grain of
Can
salt.
we ask, does everyone know what Connect to Compete is? Do we need to back up, or do we need
More information? Okay. So Connect to Compete is it's an organization, it's a nonprofit that was brought together in part by FCC, going out basically to providers, ISPs, the Comcast, the CenturyLinks, all those people, and saying, hey, we need to build this digital literacy thing a little bit. And we need to provide more affordable internet access and computers. So that like Comcast Internet Essentials, cheaper internet that you could get, Connect to Compete is the bigger version of that. And they also have digital literacy training. They're also having, starting in March of this year, a $90 million ad council campaign about digital literacy that will be driving people to libraries. Not all of it will happen. 321 is the launch date. That's only going to be in certain communities or those that opt in, but they will be providing toolkits and all sorts of resources for libraries to get out into their communities, let people know that this is coming and what digital literacy means to them and how to get assistance, all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of great things happening from Connect to Compete. We are working very closely with them. And there will be more updates about them at midwinter. If you want more info, again, you're always welcome to reach out to me. And we can talk more about it later if you have time. And then I put digitalliteracy.gov on there. That was the first attempt really to kind of take resources for practitioners and end users and compile them into one tool.
Earlier to me about that they're going to roll this out like in August or
Yeah.
something
Okay.
like that.
It's
There's
a
information
ways
about the
away.
pilot
Okay.
to make sure
Got
that
it.
you get.
So also I had a question about the zip code locator tool, which suggests to me that it's backed by a database that's nationally aggregated information about all the technology centers.
Yes.
Yeah, well, nationally aggregated of libraries, not necessarily.
Oh, okay, just libraries.
There are some community orgs in there.
Right, they
But-
pull the top list of grantees, and then also folks can opt in, that you put your information in there, and you, so, but it means that you might get traffic that you weren't necessarily expecting.
Yes.
It's that unfunded
The shadow
Mm-hmm.
man.
And are they just pulling that off of what we report to the state, which gets reported to the, is that where they're getting it?
I was told where they get it, and I forget. Apparently there was a database created years back for some other purpose of public libraries, and that's what they're using.
And
So it's not necessarily current.
Well, and IMLS is working with them to make it more current based on their information that they get in, and Kendra Morgan is working on that.
I find that intriguing because in Arizona, most of the VTOP money was used for job centers. And I don't know if that's true from state to state, the way that the VTOP money was used to fund different initiatives. So even though we're a grantee, some of the libraries, I do know a little bit about Connect to Compete, but some libraries may not know anything about it, and all of a sudden they may have constituents coming to them looking for support that they're not prepared to provide.
Right? I don't know what it, I'm not positive this is a plan right now. What I had, the most recent I heard was, I mean, their March is soon, so they're trying to get everything happening right now. But all the data is going to be loaded in February, and then it's going to be sent out to libraries through the state librarians, to their listservs, to their libraries in their state, all of that, and the libraries can opt out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, our state library already has told us to be aware that this was coming.
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Pilot sticks.
I was on a webinar last week about, with the Connect and Compete, and they said, I thought they said, and I just want to clarify this, that the sort of public ad campaign will be everywhere. And I thought you just said it will only be some places.
So they're only doing, my understanding is they're only doing purchasing and buys of ads and outreach and all that stuff in their target locations, but they're providing toolkits to libraries and other community organizations nationwide if they want to opt in.
Okay, I really did hear a different thing. And since we were
That's
gonna,
not uncommon.
I thought they said something like, we're gonna be in the 100 biggest markets.
Yeah.
I know they only have like 20 communities.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
We were hoping to use that opportunity to get some visibility. And we don't, there aren't any of those communities in Minnesota. But I thought they said that this ad campaign was gonna really be in most markets. So I'll try to get that clarified.
Yeah, I talk with them every week.
Can you?
What I was
get
told
that
on
clarified?
Monday is, Monday is when I last talked to them, and that was the plan on Monday.
And they often change their minds.
They do.
So it's very possible that it's
And one of the reasons they told me that they were doing it that way is they got so much pushback from libraries saying, we're not ready.
But Kit, also remember, you are one of the 9 communities, so it's
Yeah.
possible you're already, that they've already planned to.
Well, we're not one of the 20 communities. I mean, I know that.
They got, remember, they got that night money to
Yeah.
come in and be in St. Paul.
Which means that you would be one of the locations.
They just haven't come over and told you yet.
Okay, I mean, this is totally different than what they said on this webinar. So I just need to get the information.
If you want to send me an email, I can tell you what the most current, because it does change every week. I can tell you what the most current plan is right now. But the most current plan, as of 2 to 3 days ago, was that it would not be nationwide.
Okay. It's too bad.
I think there are benefits to either way.
It's going to 9 communities?
No, let me clarify, I'm sorry. So C2C provides different services. They like to think of it as all one, but if the ad campaign is one thing that they have. They also have arrangements with internet service providers in certain cities, and I think it was it 20 or 40, I don't know, whatever. So some amount of cities that they are in right now. And they're only in those cities because that internet service provider said, yes, we will partner with you in whatever it is, right? And then that's how, like, the website that they have and the flyers and whatever that encourage families to sign up for the low-income service or the low-cost service are in those communities. Now, there's another project they have that's funded by the Knight Foundation to go to the Knight cities and work on broadband adoption efforts. And so they were going to be in St. Paul as a Knight city, and they were working on broadband adoption efforts. But because C2C, remember, they're still young, they're still figuring themselves out. They have a new executive director. So it's all still, things change. Yeah, I'm sorry, I was
It's muddy because it's muddy. You know what I mean? Like, we try to get clarification. It's changing all the time. At this point, in the next month, we're going to know pretty well what's going to happen in March, because we're going to have to know pretty well what's happening in March, but we don't necessarily know well right now.
In other words, we can also check our zip codes.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, and I do have access to and Jamie does too, to their tool now. Like, we could do that during break if you want to. I'll pull it up. It's like
Well, Tom just
It's
pulled up
live.
the city locator.
Oh, they did make it live. That's not their dev URL, that's the actual connected compute.
Connectedcompete.org
Oh, look at that.
/locator.
So everybody look up your own zip codes
Oh, that's
and see
new.
if you're on there. Yeah, they must have just.
Things are changing quickly with us.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so that's kind of some of the other projects happening. I mention them in part because there's so many things happening and so many pieces that I think it's important to have the overview in order to understand the little piece here that we're working on, because it fits within everything. So DidjaLearnorg has some core areas. It's going to have a website that the website is the core project. And it will have an end-user resource collection and a community of practice with trainer resources. So the end user is for people to come in and have self-directed digital literacy training. One thing that we're thinking about, though, and you'll see this later with survey results, is we're looking at that as end users get there through librarian support, assistance in a library. Not that they're going to find this site necessarily on their own. So we're trying to kind of focus that in a different sort of way. The community of practice is going to be a member place for people to share resources, best practices, tools, ask questions, all that sort of stuff. So it's very similar to Patsy, but not as closed, much more open, so all sorts of practitioners can become involved. Of course, we're also going to have an awareness campaign to make sure people know about it. Things like talking to all of you. Evaluation, of course, to make sure that we are meeting the needs of the community, and sustainability to make sure that this is something we can continue to do. PLA is very committed to digital literacy, and this project is a core concept, core role for them moving forward. Literacy is one of their 4 major goals as an organization, and so this fits right within that, because literacy...
She sounds like she's worked for PLA for 5 years. I've worked for 5 months.
Is that bad or good?
No, it's great.
But you can't really have literacy without digital literacy in some ways these days, right? So So about the grant, so it was funded by IMLS. PLA is the managing organization. We also have partners with the Chief Officers of State Library Associations or agencies and ALA's Office of Information Technology and Policy. I also have a bunch of other people involved. I have a lot of committees and committee members because we don't want this to be something. I've worked in digital literacy a long time now. I've worked on high-level projects with digital literacy a long time. That's a lot different than being in the field. I know that. It's also a lot different than working in a community organization that does digital literacy. So we want to make sure all the different users of the site and the people that can make it important and powerful are actually represented by the project. So we've brought in a lot of people. We have librarians on the ground, we have state librarians, we have community organizations, we have technology experts, we have all these different people helping to inform it. And we have committees that are dealing with end user resources and training, practitioner resources and community, engagement, which is different than awareness. So the engagement is getting people active on the site, sharing resources. The awareness is just making sure people know about it. So two different goals there, evaluation and sustainability. And then we have the core executive committee too. So I have a lot of people. So this is not something we're doing in a vacuum. I hope that will benefit us. So anyone else wondering if this is something that already exists or has been done? Anyone want to know why this is different? Because I know when I first heard about the project, I'm like, well, but we have some stuff out there, right? Well, one of the core things is DidjaLiteracy.gov and Connect to Compete and GCF, well, not GCF Learn Free, but DidjaLiteracy.gov and Connect to Compete. First off, they're portals that link out to other trainings. We are making an attempt to build our own end-user trainings, pulling from what's already out there, all the amazing things that people have already made through BTOP and in their libraries. But we feel like it's really important for all those trainings to connect together, to be in one site. If we're constantly moving people, okay, here's a portal, here, go take this training on this site, and this training on this site, and this training on this site, you're really confusing beginner users, right? They can't navigate necessarily to all these different formats of training and all these different navigations for the different websites. So we're trying to build very user-focused, usability-tested trainings in a website where it's a one-stop shop for digital literacy. The other thing is Connect to Compete is a fairly new nonprofit. They will flat out tell you they don't know how long they're going to be around and what their funding looks like in the future. And DidjaLiteracy.gov, because of the way it was funded by the government, same issue. There's not built-in sustainability there. We don't know that they're going to be around. So this is something that we hope can really start to create the online hub for digital literacy that we know will be committed to for the long haul and that people continue to build off of. And GCF Learn Free is an excellent site. It's awesome. One of the things that's different for what we're doing, GCF Learn Free is excellent for end user resources. We want to build a site that is inclusive of libraries and their needs, is inclusive of other digital literacy providers and their needs, and also has a community of practice that connects in with the end user resources. So the whole bucket of resources for end users and resources for practitioners is together in one place. So librarians only have to go to one site, right? Make it easier. We're trying to make your lives easier.
Well, I think the other thing too, with Project Compass, when people were talking about providing basic computer skills at their library, they said, just tell us which ones are the best ones to send our patrons to.
Right.
So this issue of, vetting and knowing which ones are best, which ones work best
Right.
for certain groups.
Absolutely. And what we're doing is we have a committee. They probably hate me right now. I've had them doing so much work. They're like, what did I sign up for? But they are going out and vetting all the resources that DidjaLiteracy.gov has, that Connect to Compete is linking to see what's the best of the best on each topic. And then we're pulling the best from all these different trainings and compiling them into complete packages. So that's how we're building all the trainings. I can show you a demo of the training later. I'm learning e-learning now. It's hard. But we luckily have an instructional designer working with us. So again, if you guys have questions, stop me. Timeline. So the project was funded and began in the winter of 2012. Since then, we've done research collection, which, you know, for librarians, that wasn't so hard. A survey, developed personas, and we created all the committees and all the different working groups working on the different pieces. In March, we're going to have a beta and user site and a few resources up. We're not going to have that much. This is going to be a testing site, but we wanted to have something for the 3-2-1 Connect to Compete, everyone on campaign. So there's going to be something up there, but it's going to be very limited. That's one, because of timing, and two, it's kind of by design so that we can get feedback on how the site's moving. We don't want to build out this complete thing and then launch it and see how people are using it and go, oh, now we have to go restructure everything. So we're going to use the information we get from that soft launch to make sure that the full launch in June is a really functioning site. Now, that being said, we know it's very iterative. The site will change all the time based on the needs of the community and technologies and all that, but at least give us an idea. So again, and then the full site, the community practice and all the bells and whistles will be for Anneal in June, end of June. I'm out of time. All right, let's just. Yeah. Just wait till you see all the. Okay, and I had a bunch of surveys in here. We might just move through them really quickly because I'm running short on time. So we did, one of the things we did in the beginning was we did send out a survey. We were really, in my opinion, lucky. We got over 1,100 responses. I was happy with that number. And specifically to community organizations that work on digital literacy, libraries, other people from that realm. This gives you an idea of kind of, and you can't see that super well, but who we got feedback from. We were really happy to see the majority of feedback was from the smaller service areas, because we know the rural and small libraries need a lot of support in this. They don't have as many staff and resources. So that was a lot of who we pulled from. And that poll, come on, no? The poll's not going to work anyway. We're going to skip the polls, too, because of time. So we also asked them who most frequently provides digital literacy assistance. Any available staff was the first, obviously, and then reference. And I was really interested in some of the other staff. It's funny because a lot of the other I took off this list because they fit here, but people put other and then said any available staff. You know how surveys go. And I'm just curious among you guys, who provides digital literacy support for all of your locations and your libraries? I mean,
What do you mean by that, digital literacy support?
when
I mean,
someone,
really, most staff every day.
that's
Is
what
that
we
what you
thought.
mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that it's basically most people, but if someone comes in and says, I have a problem on a computer, who do you send them to? Is it the person that they went up to help them, or do you have certain people that you send those people to?
Depends on their question, you know, what
Right.
their need is.
Or send them to the reference desk.
Reference.
Desks that can be left to go to the computer.
Right.
It depends on how hard it is. We have two
Can't
people
be.
that are specifically that do one-on-one tutoring, and you know, they go to the CERT desk first, and the CERT staff can't help them, then they go to the reference desk, and then if it really is something that the person can't help with, then we have these two more trained people.
This was good for us. We kind of had, I had a feeling that it was anyone that was available would be the biggest one, but we wanted to know for sure because we wanted, if there was a specific audience that really does this work, we want to build a site with them in mind.
Well, I think depending, the tools for each one of those groups would be different. I mean, if you've got a librarian who's on the desk and can do something with the person, what their needs are very different from the dedicated technology specialist who's going to handle or organize formal classes. So, you know, I think you recognize that different audiences, they need different tools.
Definitely. So before I worked on digital literacy project, I used to be a rural library director. And I got all of the questions where I was. But that's just because we were small staff, they were overwhelmed, and quite honestly, a lot of them didn't have the tech skills to help people. I mean, we worked on that, but I want to know if that was still, I mean, that was 6 years ago. I don't know if that was still the situation.
No, I was going to say too, that even though there are different levels, I think you have to approach this to the lowest common denominator, because as hard as we try to train everyone,
And we'll get to the future ones, and I really want to ask you guys about that, but one of the big things we heard of what are your future goals for digital literacy? Staff training was one of the top two. The next question we asked were the methods of providing digital literacy support. So on-demand one-on-one assistance. If someone comes in and they say, I need help, you help them right then. I think most of us do that. And we saw that as well. Group classes, I was actually surprised by this number. I didn't think that number would be that high. Because I know, at least in Colorado, I worked with a lot of libraries that could not support group classes. They didn't have the staff, they didn't even have a room to do that. Scheduled one-on-one assistance, we're seeing an increase in this all the time. And then the guidance for self-directed learning online, that was important to us because that's a big part of this project as well. Okay, for the digital literacy resources, we asked how people learn about things, and this is to inform the community of practice. Websites was the biggest thing. The main way people learn about digital literacy is online, which makes sense to me, but I wasn't sure. Does that make sense to you guys? Or do you think it's more staff? I mean, they're close.
Do you mean digital literacy or digital resources?
Well, and there was more context on the other question, but it's basically digital resources that assist with digital literacy.
I know my tech team has been in my office before working on a problem with me, and they just Google it.
Yeah. That's what I do too.
I think staff finds things, then they share what
The sharing. I thought the sharing was going to be the biggest one, honestly. Because you have those people that will find it, but then you have those people that will just ask other people.
But they often do that online.
Yeah, we use a LibWeb, and it has all of our issues for e-readers, all of them categorized. So is that sharing? Yes. Is that website?
And you could check all that apply, so I bet some of that is represented there.
Yeah, people at my library system who are interested in this have created a little wiki for themselves.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's just your self-selected people scattered about the system. It's amazing.
All right, I'm really short on time, so I'm going to move through these fast. We asked them to list digital literacy resources that they currently use because we wanted to be able to include those when we do our audits to say what are the best resources out there, what should we be evaluating, make sure, and we got some really great things that we didn't know about. But then we asked them, okay, what makes these resources strong and what makes them weak, so that we could think about that when we were developing our resources for end user tutorials and make sure we were meeting what librarians perceive as the most helpful and getting rid of the things that are barriers. And this survey is posted online if you want to go look at it in more research and more, not research, but in more depth later. But a lot of this wasn't that surprising to me either. And I'm talking about the wrong question, Renee. Sorry, I'm totally off. Let's talk about that. So the strengths, we'll skip that one. The strengths, ease of use and simplicity were the biggest ones, hands down. And I feel like that's something that, there are a lot of great resources out there. They're really hard, especially for someone that doesn't know how to use a keyboard or mouse very well. So that wasn't really surprising. And it's something we're really conscious of. Having it have videos and visuals and interactives and not just a PowerPoint slide that is there by itself or a lot of text on the screen. So that was great. I mean, we got one quote, I loved this. I like websites that don't have a lot of extra words, but don't skip steps telling you what you need to know. Pictures mixed with text and as to not overwhelm the reader. It should be easy to navigate and topic oriented. Some of the weaknesses, the biggest things were that they were confusing, poor usability, poor navigation, and outdated. So those two things go hand in hand. So when we went to this project, we said, we gotta focus on usability. That is our primary objective. If this site isn't easy to use and simple, we failed. And that's exactly what the feedback said to us, so that was really good to hear.
An outdated piece is a huge challenge,
Yeah.
especially when you're talking about like social networking
Yeah.
programs. If they're
Changes
outdated in
so
a month
fast.
sometimes.
But Facebook changes their,
Yeah.
like, what,
Yeah.
daily?
All the email plans, it's just huge.
And then this is something I did want to find out about you guys feeling on this for the online community. We wanted to see what is the likelihood that you would join a digital literacy online community. There's a place that you could get resources, you could ask questions, just get support for this specific type of work. Would you be interested in that? And I was pretty happy. I mean, very likely is my group I'm all about. But even the somewhat likelies, this is pretty good. And I felt like, okay, there's an audience for this if we do it right. Do you guys feel the same way? That's good to hear. It makes me really happy.
Now, yes, but then we have to also consider the staff at a medium-sized library. We
Right.
have about 79 regular employees and then maybe another 20 contract employees. So I would want to be able to sell them on it.
Right.
So it's almost marketing, training, awareness.
Right.
Other stuff too, to make sure that they're, and again, remember, somebody said something about the lowest denominator. I always say we have the early adopters and we have the people at the other spectrum who are not.
So that, how I said there's the awareness committee and the engagement committee? The engagement committee's job is to get people in online, market that, create awareness, but in a way, my dream of this, I'm not sure it'll pan out, but my dream is to have 40 to 50 community managers that are in there bringing people in, sharing resources, starting conversation, so that when people come, there's already content. If we don't have that in there to begin with, we didn't have them. And have people that focus just on those pieces that have to go in there. It's a lot of work, but I'm thinking we can, hoping, I have my fingers crossed that we can get it together. But thanks, that's good feedback for me to take to my group. So I want to talk about what we heard on future goals real quickly. The number one thing we heard was develop new or improved patron classes and programs. And the number two thing we heard was staff training and self-training on digital literacy. Do you guys agree? You would switch those? Staff training first? That's what I expected, actually. Yeah. Okay.
So Tom, what's the demographic of your staff?
We probably have an average age of about 57 or higher, I'm guessing. I have a lot of older women working for the library.
Well, and I consider myself to be a tech-savvy person for the most part. I dedicate time every week to make sure that I'm learning new things and finding out what's up there, because you have to these days, regardless, it feels like, of what your background is. If you're not constantly learning tech, you're getting left behind.
We're still sort of using the staffing model that was there when I got there, but it doesn't really lend itself to people doing that. It's 6 of my branches are open 60 hours a week, and if you're a surf person, you're basically there, whatever your hours are with your schedule.
Right.
It's not like you have 1 hour off the desk for every 4 that you are employed.
Right.
So.
That whole off-desk thing has really changed in the last 3 years. At least it does.
We're doing a webinar in a couple weeks that you might.
Really?
Yeah, I'd encourage, it was a library that was very much in the same situation. How do we address our ongoing learning needs? And basically they've created a self-initiated learning
Self-directed
self-directed learning
Yeah,
model.
what staff can do in 1 hour. a week.
Right, and I actually just chatted with her today because she had a couple questions. She said the impact on the staff, just in their perception of their abilities on the public and on the community, she said there are all these benefits that we didn't even think about. We were just focused on their learning, and it ended up really changing the whole learning of the community.
Use the transformational word.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do sort of a hybrid, I guess, of that. We have computer competencies, and that continues to grow. That was part of the thing I mentioned earlier, like we had purchased the iPads, and so like there's a competency model that staff have to go through using the iPads, but it's not. I guess it's not that regular in terms of. I wouldn't really have an hour per employee on decks. And my staffing model is a lot different. I have 140 people that work in the library, but I have 80 FTE or something. I've got a bunch of people that are 10 to 15 hours.
Right. But I think it's interesting to think about this moving forward because it is such a bridge between staff learning and patron learning. How do we model learning communities as a part of that process?
When I talk about this project with a lot of people, it's the same for the staff and the end users in this piece. Digital literacy is not about teaching digital skills. If we look at it just as like, here's how to use a mouse, and we look at it just as a skill-based learning, we fail. This is a big thing, I know this, I don't know how attainable this is, but really it has to be about creating a culture of learning in our communities. That's a big difference. Skill-based learning versus creating a motivation and interest in having a culture of learning. And while this will provide skills, we have to figure out how to get to that culture of learning piece. I don't set the bar too high. This is not a problem with me. No, it totally is.
But that's one of those things too, when you think about it, that, for our staff, why do you come to the library? And that is, right, to learn something new. So like, I can't tell you how many questions I get from staff, and it's like, well, did you look it up?
Right.
Did you try to do what you're supposed to be doing with the public all the time? Did you look for an answer? Did you look for an information resource? Did you?
Kieran Hickson.
And it still doesn't happen.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know Kieran Hickson, but my favorite thing that he does all the time, he works a lot in multiple libraries, is he'll be like, I don't know how to do this stuff. He's like, well, do you know what the capital of Uzbekistan is? No, you look it up. That's what we do. We're librarians. It's the same thing with tech. It's not different, right? And then they're always like, oh, he's good, he's great. If you guys ever have an opportunity to work with Kieran Hickson, I suggest you do it. He actually just made a video, and it had Jennifer in it as a little animated person. It was amazing. Okay, I'm running really on time, like up to time.
Oh, no, you have
like
until
10 minutes.
2:15 easy.
Okay,
Yeah, you're good.
awesome. So I'm going to talk to you about our personas, because we used all that survey data that we collected and all the research that we did, and we built personas. Do you guys know what personas are? Anyone? Okay. Yay, I love personas. This is a big topic for me. Personas are very common in marketing and web development. What they are is you basically take and you list out all the core characteristics of your target market, their motivations, their resources, their socioeconomic status, all that sort of stuff, and you create fictional characters. And those fictional characters guide you through your process. So I'll show you wireframes later, when we work on the wireframes, we sit down and say, okay, well, let's see, what would Suzanne, the 42-year-old Spanish-speaking stay-at-home mom who's in the corner there, how would she interact with this site? How would she move through this site? What does this say to her? And so we developed 6 personas, actually, and to kind of deal with that. And I'll show you a summary of these 5, and then I'll show you a full personas page just to give you an idea. The first one is Suzanne, the 42-year-old Spanish-speaking stay-at-home mom. The next to Suzanne is Robert. He's a 67-year-old overwhelmed retiree. That photo? When they sent it to me, I'm like, that's total, I know that guy. On the bottom here is Jeremy. He is a low literacy homeless teen, because we're seeing a lot of that, as I'm sure all of you guys are. Amanda is a 29-year-old suburban woman who recently became legally blind. One of our audiences is those with disabilities. This is a persona that we have, we want to be conscious about, knowing that we will not be able to meet all of the needs of this user. But we want to think about it anyway. most of this user's needs are going to be hardware-based and staff training-based in a way that we can't get into. Disability is a whole other thing. But can we do our best to try and set the site up for those libraries that do have that to meet that person's needs? And the last one is Nancy. She's a 36-year-old self-employed professional who has some digital skills, but she needs more, and she wants to improve the ones that she already has. So this is for the end. You know, we're not looking at the site and the project is just basics. We're starting with basic digital literacy skills, but we want to talk about where does it go from there? How do we help the person that has skills improve this and get to the next level, always getting to the next level? So that's something that we're maybe not going to focus on right now, but again, we're building the site to be something that that person's needs can be met by it later on as well. And then I'll show you the last one. And I wanted to show you the full persona page. This is what a full persona page looks like that we're working from. So this is David. He's rural working poor. He's 32 years old. He's always worked in service. But it has those things such as, you know, the background, you know, where is his location, what's his technology, what's his connectivity, key characteristics, he didn't finish high school, he's worked in service industry for 10 years, a quote from him, motivations, a summary about who he is, what are his concerns, and what are his needs. And that's what we use to think about everything we're building.
How do you know how many personas you need? You've already kind of identified a segment of target audiences?
Yeah,
You develop
basically.
one per audience.
Yeah, well, we identify characteristics that we want, and then we kind of piece them together and say, how do these show up in groups usually? In a weird way, personas is a tough thing, because I was showing it to a friend of mine, she's like, some of those pictures and descriptions seem stereotypical to me, and I'm like, they are, by design. I mean, they have to be. So you kind of look at all these characteristics and what the research shows you, and you say, okay, how do these fit together? That's one person. How do these fit together? That's one person. And we didn't just do this for end users, we did this for practitioners too, because the site's for them as well. So they did a good job, I thought. Do you see yourselves? So we have Linda on the left. She is a reference librarian. Next to her is Ryan, who's the urban library tech specialist. And then we have Jessica, who's a volunteer at a local community org. I thought she was really interesting because I think she's someone we see a lot. She's a volunteer that really understands tech and really doesn't understand teaching. Right?
And she won't be there next year.
And she won't be there.
She won't be at that
Right.
organization next year because she will have moved into something.
Right, absolutely. And then at the end we have Lorraine. She is an overextended rural librarian that's not sure how digital literacy fits into her library or her community. So these are the personas we're working on, we're using to develop the community practice. If you guys have feedback on these, I can hear it now. You can let me know later. They're kind of final, so I'd like to hear your feedback, but it doesn't mean
10 minutes.
So that's our base point. I thought you guys might just be interested in our process and where we're coming from. And if you see glaring things like that, is totally not something that we see fit, and let me know. Next I wanted to show you just kind of the look and feel of the site. This doesn't show up super well on here, but you can kind of see, especially right here, you can kind of see what the site will look like. The color scheme, indicators, fonts and headlines, that kind of thing. We want it to be very clean, very approachable, have a feeling that communicates tech, but doesn't feel scary, right? That feels welcoming and understanding and easy. So that's kind of the look and feel. And then we have wireframes. Do you guys know what wireframes are? So wireframes are a tool we use in web design. They show user flow. While there are images and text here, that's not what this is about. Wireframes are about, does the user move through the site well? Are the buttons placed in the right positions? Are all that sort of stuff. And I'll have a link at the end here. We have these up live. You can go to them, click through them. You can watch a video that describes all the different pieces and how they fit together. And then you can get feedback. Please. And I'll show you the site in a minute, but you just can give feedback. Just click that button and it will take you right into there. I could go through the wireframes with you now, but I actually think it's much more powerful if you can go through and move through it yourself than me just saying, and this is this, and this is that.
Can I,
Mhm.
so the learn part is online learning.
Mhm.
The teach part is going to help people who may be teaching it
Mm-hmm.
live
Mhm.
from paper or something,
Mhm. Or it will help them develop.
in all kinds of environments, to people who aren't going to do the learning
Right.
by themselves online.
Right. This is so this piece is just self-directed training and learning.
Right.
This is any resources that would help a practitioner.
Okay.
It could even be marketing resources, it could be curriculum, it could be handout. So those are the two. And one of them this one you'll get to use anything you want without logging in. You can log in and track your progress, and then we get to use that data you sign. So we can make sure you're meeting your objectives. And we're probably going to work through the impact survey on that. So the teach part, you do have to log in. And once you log in, and I'll have more on the community practice, there's a lot of functionality there. Okay, and so we also have some end user tutorials. I have one really beta version up. I had to do the voice. I didn't realize how hard that was until I did it. I was like, oh, I'm gonna find someone else to narrate these. But it goes through it. One of the trainings we're trying to use an agent for our trainings. So when you go to the site, for example, this one, instructional design, when you use an agent, when you go to site, rather than this is a mouse, you use a mouse this way, this is this. The one that's up there right now, it's like, this is Jane. And you have a picture of someone. Jane needs to do this. This is how Jane would do it. And so it makes it more about stories and relevance and less about just skills. And there is a live link at the end, I'll give you that as well, to this. I say on there, we kind of want feedback on this. It's so rough that I kind of don't, because I know it's really in the beginning, but if the whole structure seems really off, I do want to hear that. On the training pages, you'll have this interactive training. You're also going to have handouts that have screenshots and step-by-step things that you can print out, or librarians can print out and have on the desks, so people can take notes, they can take it with them. We know that people want that paper too, and that helps them. So we're building in that as well. So they'll both be there. So here's the community of practice piece. We haven't hardly touched it yet. We have a community that's working on it, but from the web design and development point of view, this is something we've talked about, and that's about as far as we've gotten, because we have to have something for 3-2-1. But we're going to have, so the member login, it will allow you to do resource sharing, rating, commenting. You will be able to have profiles, friends, groups. And the groups, I think, is really important, because as you guys know, sometimes when you're helping people do a training on eGov, that's specific to your community, your state, often. It's different. And our communities are very different. They have different priorities, different needs, different relevances. So the groups are going to be an important part there. Wikis, discussions, blogs, an event calendar. So if there are webinars and events and conferences related to digital literacy and support, it's going to be all in one place. And we're actually talking about doing some gamification with it. And what that means is if you share out really great resources and people rate them as really great, you get rewards for that. They may be rewards as just recognition on the site. We might be able to negotiate that they're actual real life rewards of some sort, subscriptions to magazines or something, right? But that there's a recognition and a value to contributing and working together. There are some other sites that I've done research on that works really well in community practices. So we're going to maybe look at that and try that as well. So my ask of you is if you or someone else you are interested that you know would be a good fit for that, help spread the word about this. Give feedback. So that's the link, this one, that has a link to the survey, to the wireframes, and to the tutorial demo. And then if you want to volunteer, I don't mind. We need help creating self-directed tutorials, fostering community engagement, working on one of the committees, all sorts of things. And so the DidjaLearnorg.org/MW is where the resources are. Just DidjaLearn.org is where you can sign up as a contact form and say I'm interested in volunteering or working or have questions. You can do that there too. If you are here for Midwinter and interested, there will be a PLA update. It won't be that different than what you guys have seen here, but you'll learn there's a bunch about Edge there, so that might be really beneficial. Then I'm also going to be in the networking and commons on Sunday, following the PLA update. If you want to come by and see some demos and talk to me about some of the stuff on the website, or have feedback and you want to talk to me, I'm going to be around. That's a time you can just come reach out to me. And if you're really motivated, the Digital Learning Center meeting is on Saturday. Right now, that's the core project committee. Like all the people that have already been on committees that are working on it are coming, and it's an update. But I welcome involvement from anyone and everyone. So if you want to come to that, that is Saturday. It would be great to see you there. And lastly, there's my email, phone number, and then the 2 different links. Okay.
Wow, you were right on time. Thank you.
We can take questions.
Yeah, is there anything close?
I think you said at the beginning that the learn piece of it was more intended to actually work with a live teacher. Or to get a live person to start them, or didn't you say something like
Direct
that?
them.
Yeah, it's intended to be a resource that librarians can plop someone down in front of a computer, or digital literacy practitioners plop someone down in front of a computer, help them get there and go through it, rather than, if people stumble upon it, we are creating it with usability for that. But that's one of the things that's different about how we're doing our marketing and outreach from Connect to Compete. Connect to Compete is their target audience is end users, end of story.
Right.
Our target audience is helping practitioners support end users.
And then what grade level did you what literacy level is the learning piece?
We're struggling with that right now because we're really focused on low literacy.
Right.
So we've been trying to go for 2nd grade or 3rd grade reading level, like really low. It gets really hard. So the tutorial, for example, you see is not good at that. And it's something I know because we wrote this, our committee members wrote the script and I recorded it and I'm like, there's some words in here that are just too big. So we're gonna have to go back and edit that. And we are gonna have transcripts of we wanna have the audio, but we're also gonna have transcripts for people that have hearing issues.
What about languages? More than one language?
Spanish is gonna come.
Okay.
It's a big part of the grant. That's why we have the one Spanish-speaking persona. Basically, we want to kind of figure our process out, get everything going in English, and then we can invest in Spanish.
Okay.
Just because of cost savings.
Yeah. For us, the Spanish would be as, or not more important.
Right. We are very committed to having some Spanish resources as well. Basically, I think what we're going to do is create all the resources in English and then have someone translate them and read them.
How long does it, is it going to be structured in modules? Okay, and do you know how long it takes to get through one, on average?
It depends on the module. I don't know if you guys have time, I could run them through the tutorial. It takes about 5 minutes. Sure. Let's go to that. They are, let's see if it works on here, actually.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I'm here to tell you about a computer's operating system.
You can't see it now.
And guide you through navigating a computer. We'll follow along with Jane. Jane wants to use a computer to create a letter with pictures to send to family and friends.
Oh, I can't get it to fit
She
in here.
sits down
But
at the computer and turns it on. Let's take a look.
so the way that
When
this
Jane
works.
first turns on the computer, software starts running.
Okay, so the way this just has, the way that this works is these are all less than a minute, all of these pieces. And so 5 to 10 minutes for the whole training on that.
Okay, 5 to 10 minutes on what is Windows?
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's basically, yeah. And so this goes through, okay, this person wants to use a computer. What is an operating system? What are the different types of operating systems? Well, this is the Windows 7 desktop. Well, how a real desktop comparison to what a desktop is on a computer. How to use the taskbar, how to use the start menu. recap, and end.
And it's all video, the whole thing is,
It's all like that.
there's no activities or stuff.
There are activities, like for example, in order to get, so I show the taskbar and tell you have to open the start menu to get to the program thing. In order to move from this to this, you have to click the start menu. And then, for example, in recap, I'm like, there are 3 ways to open a program. There's the desktop, the taskbar, and the start menu. Click one of them to get to the next session.
And so then how many do you have? You have what is Windows? How many like that do you
Right
have?
now, this is it.
But the goal is obviously to have.
We want to have, ideally, we'd like to have 5 by 3, 2, 1. And then my hope is that we can build 2 to 4 a month from there on out. But this is hard because we're building a pod, this is a lot of process. And that's why I'm leaning on the volunteers for the end user piece a lot. Before we even get to this point, we've decided priorities, we decided what we want to cover. Then we have to do the instructional design, then we have to do the script, and then we have to build this piece. I'm going to have everyone do everything, but I'll build the piece, and I have someone else that'll help me build the piece, but everything else is volunteers. And then the instructional designer I have working with me basically is just oversight. Like, this doesn't make sense, we're changing this doesn't make sense, we're changing that. So.
It's exciting. It's really exciting.
Well, I thank you guys so
Thank
much
you.
for taking time.